But yeah, it was just incredible. So Melanie is the CEO and founder of Wild Heart Life. And so you train mind and body to break free from toxic relationship cycles. And so I wanted to just jump right off into that because you do mention working on the subconscious. And, I think it's just so important for people doing the work on themselves to be a better human being and to be better in a relationship, that's where it starts. That's where the permanent work is. So I know that's a wide sort of berth to jump into, but just, I would love for you just to share a little bit more about that, and then we can go from there.
Well, the thing that I always found fascinating, and I still do, is is just how what's the word I want to use? Just how impactful our
Mhm.
childhood is on our adult life and in our relationships. And the fact that most of us don't know that and don't realize it. And what I found over and over and over and over and over again is your unmet childhood needs will play out in your adult relationships until you do the work to deal with them. And a lot of people think, well, I didn't have such a bad childhood. It's normal. It's fine, right? And but you don't have to have a traumatic, literally abusive childhood for it to have an imprint on your subconscious, your nervous system, your unconscious. Like, unless you're one of those very rare individuals that, had parents that were emotionally regulated themselves and they had a good relationship with themselves and they were, truly joyful most of the time at an actual state of being, not like toxic positivity, right? Like all of us have been raised with, you know, parents who did the best they could with what they knew. So this is not like a blame game, right? They just didn't know any better, so they couldn't do any better. But it doesn't change the imprint that it impacts us with. And again, especially in today's society, so easy society. This makes me crazy. Our society is just like, oh, it's the feminist's fault, and it's my boyfriend's fault, and it's my mom's fault, and it's my dad's fault, and it's the president's fault, and it's everybody else's fault. But the thing that really changed my life, Brian, was when I actually
Mhm.
looked in the mirror. When I actually looked in the mirror after it was truly like a come to Jesus moment, if you will, where I felt like God just went smacked me right upside my head. It was an epiphany of the second divorce, right? So here I am standing in my kitchen, contemplating what the hell is wrong with you? Like these are the thoughts that are going on in my head. What? Two divorces? What the fuck? Right? Like, this is how I'm like talking to myself, right? And it sounds like it could go down a really negative rabbit hole, but it was truly an awakening. Because could I have blamed both of my ex husbands? Sure, they definitely had toxic traits. One turned out to be a stalker, narcissist, emotionally abusive, like all kinds of things, right? But here's the real truth that most people don't want to actually admit. I chose them. This wasn't arranged marriages. This wasn't forced. I chose them, right? So it was like, okay, what part of me is okay with being in relationships with people like this, right? And that was such a beautiful, profound journey into self. And then really so much introspection and just digging out all this crap, in essence, that I thought I was, right? Unworthy, not valuable, not good enough, need to settle, blah, 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 right? And to reveal the truth of I've always been worthy, I've always been valuable, I've always been good enough. I just didn't believe that. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautifully articulated. And, I think a lot of people who are on this journey, had to have that awakening or that sort of the door of awareness opens and suddenly you see the truth where, we have this unbelievable capacity for self-deception, unless we're actually looking, and we don't see those patterns because we're, as you said, we're unconsciously just programmed to repeat how we grew up. And I mean, I grew up in the 70s and 80s, and there wasn't a whole lot of emotional regulation happening in my household, or modeling the right patterns there as well. So, so thank you for sharing that. So you get to this, the second divorce, this moment of awareness. You suddenly see these
Mhm.
things, and then obviously at that
Yeah.
point you started to do the work for yourself. What did that look like?
Oh, everything and anything. If I am lots of things. The one beautiful thing about me is that I am persistent as it gets. And so if I'm like all in or I'm all out. So if I set my mind on I'm doing something, even if I don't know the details, the how, the what, the where, the when, the why, right? Well, I know the why. Um, I'll figure it out, right? So when I tell you I worked on me like it was my job, Brian, oh, I did. Like this healthy obsession. And like I can name some of the things I did, but one of the most pivotal things that I ever did, one of the most transformational things I ever did was hire a
Mm,
coach.
yeah.
Was hire a coach because what I soon found out, and I don't just say that because I am a coach, because I actually became a coach. What's the word? How do I want to say this? I was like an unlikely coach. I didn't choose
Hmm.
coaching, it
Hmm.
chose me. It was a clear sacred responsibility once I got on the other side of like all that pain and understood the path, how to go from that toxic, right, to healthy, beautiful, deep connections. What did you ask me again?
No, just the modalities of the work. I mean, but first of all, like what you just described is so
Oh,
important. I mean, I think we you had your
yeah.
why, but I mean the how is what we're sort of at now, right? I mean, like what was some of the
Yeah.
practices?
Yeah, so what I soon discovered and uncovered, right, was, everywhere I was reaching, I was just listening to my
Mm,
intuition, right? Let's go here, let's go here, let's listen to this YouTube podcast, let's watch this book, let's go to a Tony Robbins event, right? Let's go to a retreat, let's do some ayahuasca, let's do some
yeah.
cambo, let let's do everything because I'm so broken, I need to be
Yeah,
fixed, right? I mean, I know it's not true, but that's
sure.
how I felt. So, in all those things that I did, what I understood quickly was that, well, maybe not so quickly, but for me, um, was that none of them got to the
Mhm.
root cause. They all gave me kind of like a quick jolt of feeling good, right? For the moment, maybe a couple moments, maybe even a couple days, but nothing lasted. And so I realized everywhere I reached to do research, to learn, I was so inquisitive. Like when I tell you again that I worked on me like it was my job, I was obsessed. And every moment I had of free time, I was researching how can I fix me in
Yeah,
essence, right? So, what I understood and what became so frustrating was this: the how was always missing. So, I'd listen to this person, I'd listen to that person. These are some very, high, well known gurus, so to speak, right? And I'm like, yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm tired of you telling me how fucked up and broken I am. Already know this. How do I fix it?
yeah,
Right? Like, that's the same message I kept seeing over and over again. If this is you, basically, pardon all the swearing, but this is
yeah.
who I
Let
am,
it
right?
go.
But if this is you, you're
Mhm.
fucked up, right? Thanks. Thanks, Captain Obvious. I already know this. This is why I'm on this search. And again, for everybody who's listening, none of us are actually fucked up, okay? But we believe we are, which is what keeps us stuck in the cycle, right? So I speak the language that I once used to believe. So in that, I was like, I am determined to figure out the how. And it was never for anybody else. So that's when I say like coaching chose me. I didn't set out to be a coach. I set out to be the best
Mm,
version of me. I set out to heal from people pleasing, from attracting narcissists, from being with the men who treated me like I was, I don't know, the 10th thing in line, not even the second, right? Like, I, to there's so many things. So in that, in my own unlearning, unbecoming, I like to call that, you're like shedding off all the layers, all the crap in essence of everything that you are not, right? Everything that society told you you were. It's like all these little boxes that we're put in, right? If you're like this, you're in the good girl box. If you're like this, you're in the bad girl box. If you're like this, you're slut. If you're if you're like this, you're no, you're poor, you're not good enough, la 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 la. That's all these stupid little boxes. And the truth is, none of us belong in any box. Like, we're all the most beautiful, unique, different, right? People, being, and all here to have different, really beautiful, profound experiences. And the more you like explode all those stupid boxes that everybody put you in, the more you feel like that life force energy, like that truly like in love with the life way of being, like every ounce of every day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you said so many great nuggets there. I mean, it's but yeah, I mean, and for anybody listening, I mean, it's so important to, going back to what you said, is to stop looking outside yourself, stop pointing your finger,
Mhm.
and to really just own this process. I mean, a lot of people, it has to be something catastrophic, like the second divorce, or, for me, it was a drug overdose. There's a number of different things that happen to people where they get to, so much
Yeah.
pain, but something has to break before we actually start to do that work. So you did all the different modalities, the plant medicine, you worked with different things. I mean, um, you know, at some point, I guess the door of awareness is open. You're starting to sort of see these programs. You're unlearning, unknowing, undoing, which is like really
Yeah.
the concept of mindfulness. Is that's where I focus mostly. It's just like letting go of everything we've been programmed with. At some
Mhm.
point, I guess that and this is really a process of healing. I mean, for me, healing before this
Yeah.
was like another broken bone, not, you know, more than that. But, so do you have like a daily practice or something that you did at that point? I mean, obviously the coach that you were working with helped you out.
Yeah, so I learned so one of the very first people I got the privilege and the pleasure to work with was the holistic psychologist, Dr. Nicole
Okay.
LaPera.
Yeah. She's amazing. Yeah. I've
So
read her books.
so at the time, she only had like 30,000 followers on
Okay.
Instagram. Now she has over 7
Does she?
million.
Okay. Wow.
So she does. And so, to work with her privately now is not even a thing. Like, nobody
Right.
can do it. But she was the very first person, like she was my
Oh, amazing.
therapist. She's the very first person I worked with. And it was so much of the the childhood that really put such an imprint on me. And the childhood, just to give people like a quick little history of like what that looked like, right? I had a revolving door of stepdads. I had like 6 of them by the time I was 21. And I grew up without my dad. And my mom, even though he's in my life now and we're like best friends, so that's beautiful. But I grew up without him. And my mom, as much as she tried, she just really wasn't like the motherly, nurturing type. Like, she was pretty self-absorbed. I don't know, what she went through in her childhood, but yeah, no, she didn't really have much she didn't have much nurturing going on. Um, she would be the kind that would tell you the things you want to hear, but you never felt it, right? It felt
Mm,
fake, is what it felt like. It felt hollow. So, and thank God, the majority of my stepdads were pretty cool men, but one was awful, and he was with me the longest. And what it did, right? And I get, like, obviously when you're in it, you don't really realize what's happening. You don't even know. You don't even know half of the things that you and I know right now, right? If you did, you wouldn't be in that position. But you think like, well, this is just like my lot in life, and God must not really loved me. I didn't get the greatest deck of cards, whatever thing you would have said to
mm,
yourself, right? Somehow, I don't know what I did in a past life, but clearly I'm being punished right now. That's not at all the truth, but it doesn't take away from the pain that you're in, right? And so what I quickly understood when I started working on me was, you know, I people pleased as a child and as a young woman. I turned myself into whatever anybody else needed me to be. Like I was a true chameleon. I didn't even know who I was when I first started working on me, Brian. Like that was the scariest thing. I was like, outside of my roles, who am I? And it's because my life experience shaped those things in me, right? And so, when my mom went from boyfriend to boyfriend, husband to husband, she didn't care that I was, collateral
Mm.
damage. She didn't ask how I felt. I was never considered, right? And so even though I was never told I don't matter, it put an imprint. I don't matter, right? My needs don't matter. I don't matter. So what happened is I never spoke up. I never asked for what I wanted. I never demanded to be treated better or with respect. I never spoke my truth. I just pushed down, down. I made it all my fault, is in essence
Yeah.
what I did. And so what happened when I became a woman and started, you know, dating was I had such deep rooted feelings of unworthiness. I felt like I had to prove my worth to people. I had to prove my value. And by proving it, I abandoned myself over and over and over again. And it just turns into like this just cycle of you just feel like crap, right? But you don't actually realize that it's what the real truth was, Brian, was I had a bad relationship with myself. So of course, that's all I could attract were, toxic men and toxic
Yeah.
partners. Because I didn't value me. So do you think I could ever attract a man who valued me? Nope. Doesn't work that way.
Yeah. That self-worth, self-love thing, it is seems to be the thing, I mean, that we all have to
It is.
address, and,
Yeah.
I saw some statistics recently that, there's 80% of women and even like I think mid 70s because of men have a worthiness issue, and most men will never even
Yeah.
go down the path of discussing that. But and then the self love
Yeah.
piece. I mean, it's people. It's really hard if you don't put yourself in high regard. You don't truly love yourself to
Mhm.
actually, whether it's a relationship or anything, to fully engage all in with your heart. Like to your capacity.
Yeah.
So the worthiness thing is
Absolutely.
interesting, and this isn't something that you can take a pill and suddenly you're all topped up of worthiness. So it
Not
obviously
at
you had a
all.
fucking phenomenal mentor in Nicole Perla. I mean, that's her book Doing the Work, I think, is one of the more recent ones, which is phenomenal.
Mhm.
So yeah, so I mean, you did the work, and so it's like I guess in terms of fast forwarding to where you are today, now that you're coaching. Um, and I feel like our paths are very similar in that way. I'm an engineer. I did not intend to be a coach. It was just my own healing that started to started to kind of wear off in people around me a little bit, and then I realized like, wow, I really love to help people feel this way
Yeah.
as well. And it's the journey continues
Yeah.
every day. But I mean, so yeah, so where did the transition come where you felt you're at a point where you could really help other people along?
Yeah, when my life got dramatically
Mm.
different. Like, a lot of people say things like, I became a different person, but I don't believe that's true. I think that I actually became my true self. And, I wasn't my true self before. I was what society, what my environment, what my experiences taught me I was. And so when when I started to feel like you have to understand, Brian, like being raised in that environment is like imagine this is your stomach and you're like all the time. Like when you think of like nervous system regulation, right? It's that. My nervous system was as dysregulated as it got. Well, right, because it's like, oh, there's another guy. Oh, another one. And something else that I ended up doing too that I didn't realize, it's like backtracking a
Yeah,
little
yeah.
forward again, just had a thought, was I numbed myself
Mm,
out. And I didn't numb myself out with substance. Okay. And I'm not talking shit about anybody who does, but I did numb myself. And what I mean by that was I didn't allow myself to feel. I did not allow myself to cry. I did not allow myself to be vulnerable. No way. Those things are weak. That is how I felt. Tears. Suck it up. You don't have time for that shit. And that militant shit talker that ran me is probably the reason I actually survived my childhood, because I didn't have there was no time for that pain. That pain was probably too unbearable to take, right? So build armor around your heart. Do, 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 do. Nobody will ever know if they
right.
hurt me. That's how I felt. Like you would never have known if you would have known me back in like high school or like in my early 20s. I put on the best front. No, nobody would have known that I felt like I was dying on the inside. And I would never want anybody to know that, because that to me was embarrassing. It was humiliating. It was such a reflection on me. And at the time, I didn't want to look at that, right? I didn't want to look at that. And that's why that moment, that come to Jesus moment that I called it, of like the second divorce, of like, psh, psh, like I couldn't unsee what the truth was. So to answer your question, I had to go back
Yeah.
and I'm gonna go back forward. Um, when I started to feel real, true inner peace, I didn't even know what that was before. When I felt calm, truly just calm, and almost bored in my nervous system, right? 'Cause it's always
Right. Yeah, yeah.
activated, right? And you think it's like excitement. No, it's not. So like started to feel bored and calm and content, and started to truly love and appreciate myself and accept myself. That was like one of the hardest things ever. Accept who you are. Not that you can't ever get better, but who you are right now is good enough. You've always been good enough, right? And then my relationships started to get better. Um, I started to attract kings when I once could only attract trolls. And I'll say this too, because a lot of people don't see this. I did attract good men, but here's the thing: when you don't think you're good enough, you will ruin those things. You will ruin it. And so I would sabotage every good relationship with a good man, because deep down, my biggest fear was that he would find out I wasn't good enough and that he would dump me. And then that would rip my heart out. Nope. Boop, 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 boop.
Mhm. Yeah.
Armor. Nobody's getting in here. But the thing that most people don't understand is like, when you protect your heart from all the pain, you also protect it from all the love. There is no one without the
Yeah.
other. You cannot have armor around your heart and think the man of your dreams or the woman of your dreams is going to be able to walk in and you are going to be able to love them and allow them to love you. It's not possible. So I had to do the work to open up my heart and realize nobody can actually hurt me or break my heart. I mean, I'm not saying we don't go through heartbreak, right? But it's beautiful, right? Even if it's even in its pain, even if it
Mm,
ends, it's you find it also in another person, right? It's still so beautiful and so profound. And truly, I believe one of the things we've come here to all
yeah.
experience.
Wow. That was thanks for sharing that, by the way. I just I'm with you. I'm just hanging on every word because it really I'm just seeing or hearing so much. I feel that everybody can feel, but it's certainly I felt along the way. And I still struggle with keeping the heart space open. It's something I have to
Yeah.
be aware of and conscious of and in the day to day. But you're so right. You can't receive and it's closed. You can protect, but you can't receive. And that's such a big thing as well. And that sort of leads to vulnerability, which is very difficult. I mean, I think women are a little better at being vulnerable, at least with one another in a safe space. Men, we just keep pushing it down still, and there's a lot of work to do there. Yeah. So, yeah, and so why do you think it is then? When like as a coach, people listening to this right now,
Mhm,
because there's so many people that probably see themselves in a number of different patterns and things that you've shared, and have not
mhm.
felt that decontraction, like where you mentioned the contracted state of our nervous system, and we actually become addicted to
Yeah,
those hormones of stress because it's so familiar and at least gives us some kind of feeling of power, regardless. But once you fucking let it go, and once you actually truly connect with yourself and you connect with God and you really feel that coming through you, there is
mhm,
there's a high, there's a life force, there's a feeling of peace and love and joy and just presence that, even though at first it feels a little dull, a little boring, as you mentioned,
mhm,
eventually it's just you can find so much beauty in those little moments. But that's not where people start.
mhm.
So for people listening, I mean, who have been through repeating these patterns, and again,
Yeah,
they haven't maybe created enough pain for themselves to open that door. I mean, I find that is always the sticking point with this work that we do. It's how do people, you know, get past that proactively, or just realize that they are
yeah.
worth it and that they can change these patterns and they deserve the king, not the troll.
Yeah, exactly. Um, we don't have to go through that
Mhm.
insane amount
Yeah.
of pain. We are so stubborn,
Right.
aren't we? We're so damn stubborn. We are so stubborn. Honestly, we're stubborn. Um, and it's a good trait and it's not such a good trait, right? And so it was like that second one, right? Where God was like, "Oh, did you learn the
Mm,
lesson now? Because I gave you two really good." I mean, I thought that first one for sure was gonna do it, but
yeah.
clearly not. So I had to give you another, right? So it's like, here's the real truth. You will keep getting the same lesson over and over again until you learn it. You
Mm,
will keep dating the same kind of person over and over and over again in another body until you learn
yeah.
the lesson, until you feel the thing that is attracting you and having you choose that person. So, to answer your question, it's
Mm,
awareness.
that's it. Yeah.
That is the very first thing, right? You can't make any changes, shifts. You can't make any other decisions if you're not first aware of what you're doing is wrong or what you're doing isn't working, right? And the unfortunate, but it doesn't have to be that way, is like to your point, you sometimes you have to go through like really dark, painful moments to kind of smack you awake a little. But it's a choice. It's always a choice. That's the thing. And so I feel like, it's frustrating for me on this part sometimes, Brian, because I just want to go around, just like shake everybody
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
awake. And and I feel I try to do that in my writing. But it's there's so much here to deconstruct. Um, One thing, lots of people believe their own
Mm,
bullshit. And so they believe, like, okay, I'll give some examples, like stories from my own life that I think will help people. I believed that when I got married, it was forever, even though I got married twice, right? First one, forever. I had 3 children with this man. Divorce is not an option. He didn't come from divorce, but I came from plenty of divorce, right? And I'm not going to do that to my children, right? I may as well have walked around with a scarlet letter across my chest because that's what divorce would have felt like for me. This makes me wrong, bad, evil. I'm damned to hell. I'm a marked woman, right? It's ridiculous, these things we tell ourselves. So we believe this, right? So we have like society's standards, right? Which, ugh, those in of themselves are so toxic. So I believed I would be bad, wrong, not a good woman, in essence, you could say, not a good mother. if I got divorced. It didn't matter that my husband treated me like shit. It didn't matter that he disregarded me and my children. It didn't matter that he was not a good father. It didn't matter that I actually had to force myself to have sex with him. Ew. None of those things mattered. I'm being sarcastic here. None of these things mattered because if I divorced, I'm a bad person. And they will judge me and they will talk about me. And so I'm not a proponent of divorce, okay? I'm not telling everybody to go get a damn divorce, but if you're staying for the kids, it's bullshit. I'm just going to say right now, like it, don't like it. I said what I said. It's bullshit. And the reason is this. I knew that, and this is what gave me the strength to leave, okay? And I hope this will help a lot of people. I knew that if I stayed in that truly unhealthy, toxic, dark marriage, that I'm showing my daughter that this is how a man should treat her. No way. Nope, that's not going through her. And then I'm also showing my two boys this is how you treat a woman. What? No, this ends with me. That toxic cycle that ran through my mother's family, done, over, ends with me. I'm going to show my children what healthy looks like. Healthy doesn't mean you stay together forever, even when it's dark and twisted and not loving. That's not healthy, right? I'm better off without this man. My children are better off without this as an example of what they should look for. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, it's yeah, and that's where people get stuck. I think it's just fear.